Good evening and welcome to the Bullseye. I'm Dan Roan with Channel 9's pregame coverage of Chicago Bulls basketball. Tonight, it's Milwaukee invading Chicago Stadium. Two teams separated by about 90 miles of interstate highway and by 2.5 games in the Central Division standings, 2.5 games to the good as far as the Bulls are concerned. Both teams are coming in hot. Their respective winning streaks are the two longest in the Eastern Conference, but both are faced with critical injuries. More now on the Bulls and the Bucks in tonight's pregame scouting report. Milwaukee totes a 4-game winning streak into Chicago tonight, and for the season, the Bucks have pulled 9 games over the 500 mark for the first time. Ricky Pierce gets a lot of the credit for Milwaukee's recent success. Coming off the bench for Del Harris, Pierce has poured in 30 or more in each of the Bucks' last 3 games. The top candidate for the NBA's 6th Man Award this year. He's averaging 22.6 a game, and in 55 games, he's led Milwaukee scoring 23 times. He'll need another strong effort if the Bucks are to win here tonight because they've been battered by injuries. Paul Pressey not due back until Friday with his bad hamstring. Ben Coleman has a herniated disc. He's out indefinitely. And Jay Humphries bruised his left rib cage Sunday against Miami. He won't play against the Bulls tonight. But Jack Sikma will. The veteran center has learned well how physical the NBA game can become inside, so Jack often takes his game outside the three-point stripe. Tonight, the task of guarding Sikma falls to Will Perdue and Stacey King, as Bill Cartwright continues to sit with his injured back. Bulls coach Phil Jackson doesn't see that situation as a liability, at least from the Bulls' defensive perspective.
That's not the ultimate problem for us. That's a little more of a problem and advantage because Bill has to go outside and guard him. So, in that regard, Stacey matches up pretty well on the outside against a guy like Stickman.
Of course, the Bulls' winning streak is one longer than the Bucks. Sunday's win at New Jersey, ugly as it may have been, was number 5 in a row. Michael Jordan wound up with 32 points, including the game winner with 25 seconds left in overtime. To beat the Bucks tonight, the Bulls will have to handle Pierce and Sikma and Milwaukee's motion offense. They also have to get production from the center spot in the absence of Cartwright, who's always played well against the Bucks. Will Perdue thinks he's up to the challenge.
It's increasing with each game. The only thing is, like yesterday, I played well in the first half. Did all right in the second half, but I just need to put together a whole game, and I think that's happened with Houston and Milwaukee, so I need to put together 4 good quarters.
And the other half of the Bulls' pivot punch tonight, the on-rushing rookie Stacey King. Johnny Kerr talked with Stacey earlier tonight at the stadium.
It looked like at the beginning of the year, you really wanted the ball down low and you wanted to make things happen so bad. Now it seems like you're in the flow of the game. You move out to set screens, you go down low, you go to the board. It seems like the game now is coming to you a lot easier.
Yeah, I understand the system now. At first, I was a little bit trying to do too much, and I think that caused a lot of problems, and my shots were getting blocked. And now I can get out there and set some picks, and I realize if you set a few picks, you'll get open, and that frees the defense off of you. So, with Michael and Horace and Scotty and those guys helped me out, my development's coming along pretty quick.
You pay the penalty, as you said, when you play against some of the good shot blockers, but you've got some great speed getting down the court. Matter of fact, several of the games you've got layups just busting on down the court.
Well, I know I use my speed as a big asset for me. I'm not that strong compared to some of the centers in the league, but I'm very agile, and I think that's one of the keys to my success so far, is that I can get up and down the court and outrun some of those big 7-footers.
If you had, Stacey, if you could take off, let's say 2 weeks right now and say, I really have to work on something, what would be one thing you'd want to work on?
I think I'm going to have to work on being a more ferocious rebounder. I'm doing pretty good right now, but I would like to become an offensive threat like a Dennis Rodman on the offensive boards and be an Akeem Olajuwon on the other end.
Oh, we get a combination of that, baby. We'll all be wearing rings. Stacey King's been my guest here on Bullseye. We'll be back with more after this.
Welcome back to the Bullseye. Time now for the NBA news. And the headline tonight, as it has been for much of this season, is the continued outstanding play of San Antonio rookie David Robinson. The Spurs center has been named the NBA Player of the Week with some spectacular numbers. Robinson averaged over 24 points, 14 rebounds, and 9 blocked shots over 3 games. He had 2 triple-doubles in points, rebounds, and blocks. David Robinson beat out Milwaukee's high-scoring Ricky Pierce to win Player of the Week honors this week. Also in San Antonio, ex-DePaul guard Rod Strickland is fitting in very nicely, if the one-loss record there is any indication. Since Strickland came to the Spurs from New York in that Mo Cheeks deal, San Antonio's won 3 in a row. Rod hasn't started a game yet, but he's averaged almost 13 points and 9 assists while shooting 53% from the floor. He had 18 points and 9 assists in a game last night, a victory over Sacramento. Another former Illinois collegian, Jim Less of Bradley, has been cut by the L.A. Clippers. He was into his second 10-day contract with the Clips, And former Georgetown star Reggie Williams is looking for another new home. Reggie was traded by the L.A. Clippers to Cleveland as part of that Ron Harper deal, but he was cut by the Cavaliers after averaging only 7 points a game. The Cavs may re-sign Reggie if he clears waivers. One of the best games of this past week found the Utah Jazz at the Forum against the Lakers. Time winding down, Magic's hook put L.A. in front by 1. But back came Karl Malone from John Stockton. He nailed it. Utah by 2. Magic Johnson, though, would have one last hook, and this one was for the tie. 0.6 of a second left, and it bounced out. The Jazz win it by 2, LA's second home loss all season long. In that game, LA center Vlade Divac was injured when he collided with Malone in the first half. He's been given the okay now to resume practice. And in Philadelphia, Johnny Dawkins is apparently okay after injuring an ankle against Orlando last night. X-rays were negative, and he is expected to play Thursday when they take on the Knicks. We're going to check out what happened and what did not happen during the last week of that trading period as our Jim Durham chats with Bulls beat writer Sam Smith of the Chicago Tribune.
Well, here in Chicago Stadium, I have a chance to visit with the beat writer from the Chicago Tribune, Sam Smith. The NBA trade winds stopped blowing last week as the trading deadline came and went without the Bulls making any moves. But there were some moves around the league, Sam, and the team that I felt really improved themselves the day of the trading deadline were the Knicks, as they picked up a veteran guard, Maurice Cheeks, who can't do anything but help them, a definite contender in the NBA.
Yeah, J.D., I definitely agree with that. It's a surprising trade in a lot of ways because I thought the Spurs had a legitimate chance to do something this year. And to go to a guy like Rod Strickland, who's never started in the NBA, and has admittedly had some problems, tardiness being the least of them. I'm not sure what the most of them are. It's a questionable move for San Antonio. I know they thought that Cheeks might retire on him in a year or so, and they wanted to get a young player, but I'm surprised about it. But one interesting thing about it is I think the Knicks may have tried to trade Jackson, too, and couldn't have traded him, and then tried to get a first for Strickland. So it's interesting the value, what those two players' value had become.
But I look at New York come playoff time, and I really like the fact that they've got Cheeks there. You know, oftentimes a coach can perhaps lose confidence in his point guard, but if he's got somebody like Cheeks waiting in the wings, boy, what a...
Yeah, and especially when you come down in the playoffs, so the game moves more toward half court, as you know. Cheeks is not only a winner playing on a championship team, but he's more suited to that style of game. And he's perfect for a team like New York, where everybody wants the ball. He knows who to get the ball to. And you remember against the Bulls last year, they never could get the ball to Ewing when they needed to. Cheeks can get the ball to whoever they need to get the ball to.
What about the Bulls, Sam? They did not make any deals, as it turned out. I know there was a lot of speculation. Rodney McRae's name came up before the injury. Adrian Dantley's name was talked about, or you talked about it, I know, in your columns. Were they ever close to getting a deal for Dantley?
I really think they were talking about Dantley, and I think if Adrian hadn't gotten hurt, a deal would have been made. I think he had become sort of a fallback position. They were looking at some different things, some swing type of guys like Jerry Reynolds and maybe Rod Higgins, even if they could pry out Sam Perkins or Rodney McRae somehow. I know they wanted Rodney McRae, and even on this team here in Milwaukee, they would have liked to have gotten a shot at Ricky Pierce, as would a lot of teams.
Right.
But when it came down to it, I think they would have gone for Dantley had he not gotten hurt.
That's obviously where the club seems to need some help now, because the two most athletic players, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, the two guys that they rely on the most offensively, they also rely on the most defensively.
Absolutely, and you see that lately when Scottie's rebounding dropped off a little bit, how much the team is hurt. They rely on those two guys to do so much, get in the lane, steal the ball, rebound, score. And Scottie, as you well know, has really had a down period in the last month. He seems to come out of it a little bit now, but I think that's because of fatigue. I think he's really played out, and he needs to develop a real second win now, and that's an obvious hole. They really don't have anybody to back him up.